In the electric car space, great things have been happening at the upper end of the spectrum. But Tata Motors has done exceptionally well to democratize the game at the lower spectrum as well. And the Nexon really has done wonders for the brand. Tiago EV also added its small little share. But really, what is now going to intensify the game is the car that you see behind me. It is a Tiago EV, and that means electric mobility is coming into the hatchback space, and this is going to be the entry point into the electric space for a lot of people. Hello and welcome to Pitstop. Without wasting any more time, let's get behind the wheel of the Tiago EV and see what exactly does it feel like in its electric avatar. What is the motor response like, the range and all those kind of things. Let's go. As with the Nexon EV and the Tiago EV, the changes that the Tiago EV receives are also pretty much in line with representing what Tata has been doing in the EV space. So the broad silhouette of the car remains exactly the same as the standard Tiago because, well, you can't really change the car itself, right? So you have the same styling overall, but there are some elements that are changed so that it is identified as an EV without any issue at all. So the grille section is essentially a flush plastic element, and then you have very subtle changes on the outside. But the biggest change is that this car comes in some very EV-oriented colors, and the one that we are driving is the communication color. It's a shade somewhere in the palette of green, and it's on the lighter side. But you also have a nice dark and very pleasant green. That I think will look very nice. But generally the fact that this Tiago is an EV is marked by the color changes and these slight elements which make it stand out. On the inside as well, things are pretty much the same as the standard Tiago. You don't really have a lot of changes going on, and I'm delighted to say that the steering wheel, which has always been the highlight for me, remains exactly the same as it has been in the other Tata cars. The rim diameter I'm a fan of because it's just so right. It fits very nicely in your hands. Just on design and the way this has been shaped, it's yeah, spot on. Now this is the first electric hatchback and the most affordable electric car in the country right now. So you would expect that it has been given a bit of a lesser treatment, and it doesn't really have all those many features, but that is not the case. On connectivity, it gets everything. You also have Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and then you have the other safety features as well. The only bit that I really wish Tata would have worked on again is the quality of the camera. It is not something that is really up against the best in the business, and yeah, I think if you just ignore that and also ignore the fact that the screen and the real estate management of the screen is very questionable, then it's okay. But just on outright features, the Tiago EV is a job well done. The good things about the Tiago EV are the fact that one, it gets climate control, and the AC units in essentially all Tata since decades on have been pretty effective, and that's the case over here as well. So you'll not really have any problems in cooling down the cabin as such. And this cabin is also fairly small, not that it's not roomy. For a car of this size and this footprint, the cabin has enough space, and the people in the back also sit in fairly decent comfort. The seats, again, you know, we all want a bit extra, but otherwise, nothing really to complain about in the back. But yes, because this is an EV and the batteries are placed where the fuel tank essentially would be, and then under the seat. So it's almost like a slight S sort of a shape that the batteries are placed in. You do get a little less luggage space, so that has definitely been compromised. And yeah, you also don't get a spare tire as standard. Instead, if you want to opt for that, then you don't really have any space where it goes and gets fixed in a harness. Tata is just going to put it in the luggage space, and that's about it. The Tiago EV comes in two forms or two battery levels. One is a 19.2 kilowatt hour battery and one is a 24 kilowatt hour battery. The one that we are driving is the 24, and it delivers about 55 kilowatt of power, which means it is equivalent to about 74 horsepower. And if you opt for the 19.2 kilowatt hour battery, then that is going to produce 45 kilowatt, which is about 61 horsepower. In the smaller battery version, the motor makes about 110 Newton meters, and the bigger battery, that one makes 114. So it's just the delta figure of 4 Newton meters. The claimed acceleration figures, the smaller battery one does 600 bit seconds, this one does 500 bit seconds. Hardly going to make any difference because that is the time for 0 to 60 kilometers an hour, not 0 to 100. Had it been 0 to 100, this would have been a performance hatchback for sure. This drive selector is a little slow to respond. For example, if I have to go from R to D, there are 2 steps. But if I go through quickly, then it's just going to put me in neutral. And I've had this problem quite a lot over the last few hours that we have been driving. Now with the Tiago EV, you get multiple options to charge the batteries. A couple of options are for the wall box. Now the first one, which is a lower capacity one, if you go with the regular 3.3 kilowatt AC charger, then you would be charging the car from 0 to 100 in about 7 hours. And that is for the smaller battery, and about 8.5 or touching 9 hours for the bigger battery. And if you go to the 7.2 kilowatt AC charger, again the wall box, then the times are about 2.5 hours and about 3.5 hours, or just over these numbers for the smaller and the bigger battery respectively. The DC charging figures are given to us for 10 to 80%. And that can be done in about 58 minutes or just touching 1 hour. And that is for both the batteries, the low capacity one and the high capacity one. You will go from 10 to 80% charge in about 1 hour. And then there is another option of charging the car from any 15 ampere socket. And for the smaller capacity battery, it's going to take about 7 hours. And for the bigger battery, about 8.5 or 8.7 hours. The Tiago EV is largely going to be used for very normal, sedate, in-city driving, going from point A to point B, your regular home to office commute and stuff like that. It is not really going to be a serious highway car, and I suspect it's not going to be a serious highway car also because of the range. Now Tata of course claims that the range with the higher battery is going to be in excess of 300 kilometers, 315 is what they're claiming, but I do believe that going between, say, 240 to 270 kilometers on a single charge will not be a problem. The Tiago has always been a fairly light car, and to convert this car into an all-electric one, definitely there has been a little bit of weight gain. I suspect it's about 150, 160 odd kilograms, thereabouts. And to manage the extra bulk, Tata has done a little bit of a revision in the suspension as well. So the suspension per se is pretty much the same as the Tiago, but what Tata has done is changed the way the springs are and the damping is. The rating is definitely different. You can feel the way it drives on the road is not as quote-unquote plush as the standard Tiago. The standard one soaks the bumps a little bit better. This one, it soaks the bumps all right. That's not the problem, but it is going to tell you that it has been soaking bumps. The Tiago EV comes with different region levels, and you go from 0 region to max region in 3 steps. And Tata also claims that this can let you do one pedal driving, but I have not been able to convince myself that that is the case. Even in the most hardcore region mode, the region is not as strong as I thought it would be to allow me to just have a single pedal drive experience. It's not that at all. You will have to work your brake pedal every now and then, and that again is a bit of an issue because the calibration of the pedal itself is on the softer side. It feels like the pedal is a little spongy and the brake bite comes in very deep into the play, and you really have to get progressively hard on the pedal to be able to extract that bite point But the brakes by themselves are pretty okay, and they work in a very decent way as well. It's not really going to give you any lump in the throat sort of an experience at all. And if you're driving this sedately at manageable speeds, no problems. The Tata Tiago EV, the most affordable electric vehicle that you can buy in the market right now. Well, it's actually not a bad deal at all. It comes with a breath of fresh air. It has all the regular strong traits of the Tiago. It's reasonably spacious. It's good to look at. It drives moderately well. And the fact that it is a converted car, converted to electric power, it has had to live with some challenges and some bargains here and there. And keeping all that in mind, the way this has been done and executed by Tata is really very, very impressive. You will get a decent enough range, about 250 to 70 odd kilometers or thereabouts, and that's plenty enough for your regular commute. And then you get a reasonably comfortable cabin. Yes, the seats could be better, and some plastic parts here and there could be better finished off as well. But generally, the overall experience is pretty much the same as the standard Tiago. You get all the features, the connectivity is great, and yes, so in that sense, this one is a reasonably good job.